But what I wanted to start by saying is let's really start with the absolutely obvious. It was a very tough settlement, and I do know that councils are facing very difficult choices. But so is a nation. Public debt is approaching nearly £1 trillion. Last year the government was borrowing £1 for every £4 spent, and we spend more in interest payments on public debt than we do on schools. It was completely unsustainable. It risks our economic credibility and our economic future. And the really hard truth is that you can't ignore a quarter of public spending, and I think councils recognise that they have an important role to play in bringing down public sector debt. But given the track record of local authorities, who have tended to be more prudent, more efficient than other parts of the public sector over the past few years, I have every confidence that local authorities will rise to the challenge. Against that background, it's not easy to increase productivity and reduce back office services without hitting the front line. Leicestershire and Nottinghamshire are planning to save £2 million a year through sharing their back offices. West London councils are looking to go even further and share many frontline services. Bath is cutting back its top team, so money can go to the front line. Leighton Buzzard is saving money thanks to good housekeeping over the past few years, which they can now invest in actually improving some services. I'm also really pleased about the number of councils who are coming together to share services and work through these challenges together. I'm really impressed by the numbers who are biting the bullet on senior pay and sharing chief executives. I'm also very grateful for those who are recognising the importance of transparency, and I'm pleased to report that we now have over 200 councils have put their spending online. Of course, there are some councils who've been grandstanding to the media, and if you'll forgive me, I'm not going to address them today because they simply aren't listening. I'm more interested in working with the majority of you who have stepped up to the plate. I want to make sure you have everything you need to tackle these challenges head on. The localism bill will make a very big difference, and I know you've been giving evidence. And I want to thank the NLGN who've worked so constructively with us to shape the best possible deal. When I was in opposition, you helped organise a series of meetings that frame my idea of the general power of competence. And it's my hope that you'll be able to look and to offer that kind of facility as we move towards repatriating the business rates. For the first time in decades, Council will have real bite, real powers to say over issues that matter to local residents. But other parts of a much more radical redistribution of power, so that community groups and residents have a much greater say over their lives. There's a night of irony that the main criticism coming from the opposition Labour Party is that the bill doesn't go far enough, and then they say that there's a real risk that the new powers will be abused. There is a real opportunity to be ambitious, for councils to be radical, and to have a powerful vision for their area. There's also a great threat to localism on the horizon, and I believe that this represents the biggest threat to localism, which fills Middle England with rage, and that's cuts in bin district collections. Let me be frank, If councils can deliver a service that the public like and have confidence in, I think it's a matter for them. But we need to remember that rubbish is the most visible, most frontline services of all, in return for paying out best part of £120 a month in council tax. If we don't sort this out, I think that the cause of localism will be set back by a generation, by creating an army of residents who view their council with resentment rather than with respect. There is genuine anger that over the past decade, council tax bills have doubled, but bin collections have halved. In the public's experience, the iron fist of the municipal state has come down on people for the most minor of bin breaches. State officials, town hall bin police, people I once described in opposition but wouldn't do now, as a Taliban, rifle through families' bins without consent. Good Samaritans who pick up fly tipping are admonished for dropping it off at the local dump. Pensioners face larger fines than shoplifters for offences of not closing a bin lid. I do not think of anything more cohesive, anything more that would destroy trust in local councils than the last government's stealthy imposition of bin cuts through fines and bin taxes. But it's politically naive to think this has been purely a consequence of local decisions. It most certainly has not. All these bin policies have come from central government's interventions and interference, cooked up in Whitehall, with councils picking up the blame. With almost no debate in Parliament, the last government changed the law, weakening the requirement to collect bins and allowing bin charging. The Audit Commission marked down councils for refusing to go fortnightly and issued guidance cajoling councils to restrict their service to households. Quangos urged councils to impose fortnightly collections, recommending that after local elections would be the best time to avoid being a political issue and, quote, to overcome political resistance. These central policies resulted in perverse local outcomes which need to change. So we've already taken steps to abolish bin taxes. We're scrapping the Audit Commission's interfering inspections. We've issued new guidance to stop bin snooping. And the government's waste review will set out a proper roadmap. We intend to work with councils to increase the frequency and the quality of rubbish collections, starting with removing the perverse incentive that have pushed councils to cut services. We want to make it easier to go green, championing innovative things like the Recycle Bank, which rewards recycling. And we will tackle public concern over civil liberties aspects of inappropriate enforcement practices while clamping down on fly tipping that blights our laybys, our side streets and our countryside. The local government sector must wake up to the fact that even with the best intentions, public policy on bin collections went horrendously wrong under the last administration. But if we need to address the issue which threatens localism, we also need to look at those forces which will give it real bite. In particular, I want to make sure that councils have the economic freedom to go their political independence. We've taken steps, small steps I think, in the right direction. With a couple of exceptions, we've ended ring fencing so that councils get the money with no strings attached. We're also letting them borrow against future growth of business rates. But there's need for a much more fundamental reform. So the system needs to be more transparent, not a formula that Einstein himself struggled to understand. When I first arrived in the department, I was told that there were only 3 people within the department that truly understood the way in which the grant formula worked, but was told the sad fact that none of them had ever met. And when eventually I did see the formula, it was beyond comprehension. And I found that when we did seek to do the distribution, the only thing you could really do to change things was to look at flaws and to look at relative need. So we will break Council's financial dependency on such movement, having come round with the begging bowl and saying, please sir, I want some more, isn't really a mature relationship that we need. The key is letting councils keep much more of their business rate. In one fell swoop, we can make the system more straightforward, make councils more self-sufficient, give them genuine financial stake in the local economy, which will go hand in hand with our proposals for local enterprise partnerships. Of course, this is not without challenge. There are important issues we need to work on. We need to keep protecting the most vulnerable councils who don't have a strong tradition of private enterprise. We won't be simply cutting all councils loose. We need to make sure the business community has certainty and stability for its needs. I want to give councils a green light to become more innovative and to work more closely with business, not to rack up the business rates. But I think with your input, we can sort these issues out sensibly. We can strike a new balance so that those councils can become more sufficient, aren't trapped in a financial straitjacket anymore. And all councils, whatever their circumstances, are rewarded for promoting growth. So in the short term, I know councils have got some very tough decisions to make, but I feel optimistic about the long term. I believe that in a relatively short period, councils will be almost unrecognised from what they are today. Much stronger, more dynamic, more powerful, with political autonomy and financial independence, and with much more direct, responsive relationship with their residents. This is the most ambitious, most innovative councils are already heading down that road. I think there is a tremendous opportunity for every council to be able to follow suit. Thank you very much indeed.